Imagine waking up every single morning, going to work full-time, doing everything society told you to do, and still feeling like you're financially drowning. That is now the reality for millions of Americans. People are working harder than ever before, putting in 40, 50, sometimes even 60 hours a week, yet somehow they still can't afford life. Paychecks disappear almost instantly. Rent keeps rising. Grocery bills feel out of control. Credit card debt is exploding. And even families earning what used to be considered good money are quietly admitting something shocking. They feel broke. Across the United States, a terrifying question is beginning to spread through the middle class. If working full-time no longer creates financial stability, then what happened to the American dream? For decades, Americans believed in one simple idea. Work hard, stay disciplined, build good credit, contribute to your 401k, pay taxes, and eventually life would become stable. You could buy a home, support a family, take vacations, and slowly build wealth over time. But today, that promise feels weaker than ever before. Millions of workers are realizing that full-time employment alone no longer guarantees security. In fact, many Americans now feel like they are running faster financially while falling further behind every single year. One of the biggest reasons behind this crisis is inflation. Over the last several years, the cost of living in America exploded across almost every area of life. Grocery prices surged. Gas became more expensive. Insurance costs climbed higher. Rent prices reached record levels in major cities. Healthcare became harder to afford. And after the Federal Reserve aggressively raised interest rates to fight inflation, borrowing money suddenly became far more expensive for ordinary people. Mortgage rates skyrocketed. Car payments increased. Credit card interest rates climbed above 20% for many Americans. Families suddenly found themselves trapped between rising prices and rising debt at the exact same time. What makes the situation even worse is that wages have not kept up with the real cost of living. Yes, some workers received raises, but those raises were nowhere near enough to match inflation itself. In reality, many Americans are technically earning more money while becoming poorer in purchasing power. A salary that once felt comfortable now barely covers basic expenses in many parts of the country. Families that once considered themselves middle class are now cutting subscriptions, delaying vacations, avoiding restaurants, and reducing spending everywhere possible simply to survive financially. Housing has become one of the biggest symbols of this crisis. In many cities across America, rent prices have become so aggressive that workers spend huge percentages of their monthly income just trying to keep a roof over their heads. Homeownership, once considered a basic milestone of adulthood, now feels almost impossible for younger generations. High mortgage rates combined with expensive home prices created one of the least affordable housing markets in modern American history. Even people with stable jobs and strong FICO scores are struggling to qualify for homes they could have comfortably afforded only a few years ago. At the same time, millions of Americans are quietly relying on debt just to survive everyday life. Credit card balances in the United States are sitting near record highs. People are no longer using credit cards for luxury purchases alone. Many are now using them for groceries, utility bills, rent, and emergency expenses. But once debt begins compounding faster than income grows, escaping financial pressure becomes incredibly difficult. Many households are entering financial survival mode without openly talking about it. Social media has made the emotional pressure even worse. Every day, Americans scroll through images of luxury vacations, expensive apartments, designer brands, and unrealistic lifestyles online. That constant comparison creates enormous pressure to appear successful even while privately struggling with debt and financial anxiety. Many workers now feel trapped between rising living costs and a culture that constantly encourages spending money they do not truly have. Meanwhile, corporations and wealthy investors often appear to be thriving, while ordinary workers struggle more than ever. The stock market reaches new highs, luxury spending remains strong in certain industries, and major companies continue generating billions in profits. But underneath those headlines, millions of ordinary Americans feel financially squeezed by a system that increasingly feels impossible to keep up with. That growing disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street is fueling frustration across the country. What makes this moment especially painful is that many Americans feel like they did everything correctly. They went to school, worked full-time jobs, paid taxes, tried building good credit, contributed to retirement accounts, and followed traditional financial advice. Yet despite doing all the so-called right things, many still feel financially stressed every single month. The traditional path toward middle-class stability no longer feels guaranteed the way it once did for previous generations. And that may be the biggest warning sign of all. Because when millions of people work full-time and still feel broke, the problem is no longer just about budgeting or personal finance. It becomes a sign that something deeper is changing inside the American economy itself. The fear of falling behind financially is becoming part of everyday life for millions of households. And unless incomes begin rising faster than the cost of living, more Americans may continue feeling like the dream they were promised is slowly slipping away.